Today, we'll be taking a look at some Amish knives. Every tool that the Amish use is valued for its utilitarian capabilities. If the thing holds no purpose, then it's not worth your time, and knives are no different. Besides making all of their knives themselves, right there in the blacksmith's shed, they've settled on very specific kinds of knives to serve every purpose imaginable for any kind of survivalist. Make sure you stick around till the end of the video to see which knife makers the Amish swear by. You will not want to miss it. Obviously, any kind of blade can be used defensively, but that's not why we're here today. We're here to learn how it's made, maintained, and what kinds of blades will serve you the most, both inside the home and out in the wilderness. Since the Amish craft their own knives, tools, and horseshoes in their hot and noisy smithies, let's talk a little more about the kind of steel they use. Blacksmiths spend years perfecting their craft, and we're certainly not expecting you to start making your own in your backyard shed overnight. But there's still a great deal to learn from the technique and the materials used, so that you can know what to look for whether you want to buy or make your own. 1095 carbon steel is optimal for the sharper home use knives and for those used in the delicate process of butchering. If you're looking for a blade that's a bit more robust and not as prone to rust, in other words, the hunting knife that's sheathed on your side, then alloys like O1 and D2 grade tool steel is the best option on the table. There's a whole area of maintenance to consider too. The Amish value their knives and guns just as much as they do their cattle and their tools. Like all things in Amish communities, longevity is utterly reliant on how well you look after your implements. If a hunting knife isn't in use at the moment, it's stored in a cool and dry place, wrapped in a cloth that's been soaked in mineral oil, or any kind of cooking oil works too. As unusual as it sounds to us, who are used to throwing our knives in the kitchen drawer, oil prevents rust and creates a protective layer around the wood handle and the steel blade to prevent any moisture damage. For a knife that's going to do the hard work for you, and to do so for many more years to come, it needs to be stored with preservation in mind. Then there's learning how to sharpen your knife manually. Get a whetstone or a sharpening rod and learn how to do it yourself. Buying a whetstone is very inexpensive, no matter what material the stone is made of. Any flat natural stone will do, but you really need to learn how to sharpen your own knives ASAP. Dull knives hinder your progress. It breeds an environment for unnecessary injuries, and using a bad blade to butcher a carcass will ruin the meat that you worked so hard to bring down. Besides, why on earth would you remain reliant on someone else to do it for you when it's probably one of the easiest skills to learn that we've ever mentioned on this channel? There are a million videos out there that'll give you a visual lesson on how to do it in 5 minutes or less. Finally, handles are a subject that not a lot of people take time to investigate. Our prepper friends prefer wooden handles, but really it's all about the weight and the feel in your hand. Blades can be replaced relatively easily, so you're not limited to a specific material. We'd lean away from metallic handles, besides more rust and unnecessary weight to deal with. A metallic handle is more slippery and therefore not always the best option for quick and decisive work like butchering. Rubber and wood, on the other hand, molds to your hand over time, and the handle becomes almost like an extra limb for you after a few years of good, comfortable use. Before we get to the actual knives themselves, we need to take a minute to remind you to like, subscribe, and share the hell out of this video. Your engagement is the reason that our team can bring you human-produced content geared for the homesteader, the prepper, and the everyday guy who wants to get prepared. I say human-produced because half of you think I'm AI. Well, let me ask you folks, can AI do this? That's right, so keep your comments to yourself. But seriously, without you, we couldn't do what we do. So those of you who already subbed, and those of you who are about to do just that, thank you. And now we get back into the knives themselves. Every blade has a purpose, and every purpose has a blade. Now, the Amish have many kinds, but we'll be skipping over the bread, cheese, and fruit knives for this round. It's not that they don't serve their purpose, but unless you're an artisan cheese maker who's concerned about preserving the texture of your homemade cheese, then we doubt you'll find any use for them. Besides, you don't absolutely need those 3 blades to get by, since other kinds can be used to do their job just as well. Number 1. Pocket knives and multi-tools. Every single person, and child for that matter, should make it a habit to carry a pocket knife on them. It should come as naturally as you putting on your shoes in the morning. For the Amish, a basic pocket knife is as commonplace as prayer is. Men, women, and children all carry a trusty pocket knife with them at all times. The reason for it is obvious. Having a blade on you to eat an apple, loosen a screw, or snip off a diseased leaf from your tomato bush. There are a million different little things that require a blade during the course of a day, and having a basic knife on you at all times will save you the time of going all the way back into the house to get the garden shears or a screwdriver. Then you get the utility knife. And yes, the Amish love their Leathermans. Personally, we'd advise a more versatile multi-tool instead of the simple pocket knife. It doesn't matter if you're a prepper, homesteader, or just going to your cushy office job. You'll probably end up using it multiple times a day. And if, knock on wood, you were gonna get lost out in the wilderness with nothing else on your person, having a multi-tool is going to be the most versatile tool you can have. Number 2, carving knives. Carving knives depends on their use. Technically, the fruit knife falls into this category too. It's just a smaller version of the same thing. The Amish usually produce them for the purposes of wood carving or to graft their fruit trees. But they are also made to be used as an everyday eating utensil. The eating kind of carving knife is usually made with the individual in mind, as their own personal utensil. No one else gets to use that blade at the table except the person that it was made for. In communal settings, personal utensils like knives, plates, cups, and forks is not just a matter of personal ownership. It greatly reduces the spread of disease and gives a person a sense of self in a setting where everything is shared. The longer carving knives are what's used to butcher an animal. These are also those thin blades that you see brought out when a carcass needs working. They don't start out that thin. They've been sharpened so much over the years that they lose some of their width. A good carving knife will slice through flesh, skin, and even bone if it's wielded with skill. Carving knife steel is not quite as thick as the hunting knives are, making them more lightweight, and their size is dependent on their use. For use around the home, they're no longer than your hand. And since they're used inside and outside the home, they're rarely sheathed. Number 3, hunting knives. Hunting knives might look a lot like a carving knife, but they're very far from it. This blade needs to be bigger than your hand at the very least, and is the kind of thing that you'll be using out on your hunting trip. The steel is thicker and the blade is much more robust than any other utilitarian blade. This is because you'll be using it for, everything. Scraping off shavings to make a fire, cutting ropes, digging an arrow out of a tree, and then using it to slit the deer's neck that you just brought down. So the regular stainless steel isn't quite hardy enough for those more heavy-duty tasks you'll be expecting from them. Here, you need to look for blades that are made with tool-grade steel. Hunting knives are big and they lack the finesse you need for butchering a carcass completely. But they can be used to skin and quarter the animal to make them easier to transport. It's a good all-around blade to have, since they'll be doing a lot more than just cutting up meat. The hard use that they get means that you'll need to learn how to sharpen your knife out in the field if necessary. We'd also advise that you get a decent sheath for it. These blades are big and sharp, and they're not made to be carried in your pocket. They're made to be strapped to your belt for easy access, and you can easily sever an artery if they're not safely covered where it hangs on your belt. And finally, we'd like to focus on some brands and workshops to consider when making your purchase. Werther, Rada, and Adams International Knife Works are excellent options. Are they pricey? Definitely. But the stellar quality and exceptional workmanship make that price tag worth it. You're investing in a tool that'll serve you for a lifetime after all. Adams International Knife Works make custom blades according to your specified length, width, and with any additional alterations you can think of. The Amish County Store is another great brand that you gotta look at. Their cutlery is more appropriate for home use, and almost all of their products come with steel handles. Though those aren't our favorite kind of handles, there's no denying that their blades are made to last, no matter how hard they're worked. All of the 4 companies we've mentioned have taken from the Amish and old European blacksmith techniques that were made to stand the test of time. At the end of the day, the knife that you carry is just as much of a tool as the spanner and your screwdriver are. They're tools that are meant to be wielded with intention, so use them as such. The weapons, the knives, the canned goods, the camping gear, all of it has a purpose, but they don't mean a thing if you don't know how to use them. So get out there and learn how to sharpen the blade yourself. Try your hand at butchering an animal, and know what you need to look for to make the right purchase so that it can serve you for the rest of your life. Alright, we'll see you in the next one, but until then, this is Threat to Survival. Prepare today, thrive tomorrow. Embrace the threat to survival.